Hello and a warm welcome to the Irish Angle, our weekly discussion show talking about all things horse racing, both in Ireland and abroad. As usual, I've Johnny Ward and Emma Nagle here. And if you do enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the little like button below if you're watching on YouTube. Emma, Johnny, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vinny.
Thanks, Vincent.
Now, loads to discuss and mainly all about Royal Ascot. And Emma, you were there for 3 days. How did it go?
Yeah, I was there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, my second year going, and yeah, couldn't fault it now, to be fair. From start to finish, really enjoyable experience, top class racing the whole way through the card. Every single race you watch over there is ultra competitive. Everyone seemed to be having a good time. The weather was sweltering hot. Probably the only time that the girls in heels wouldn't be complaining, because I'd say the lads wearing the tops and tails were fairly struggling in that weather now, but couldn't fault it whatsoever. Brilliant experience from start to finish. And yeah, I think maybe if I was going again, either take it easy on one of the days or go 2 days, because 3 days is a bit of a marathon now, but I still enjoyed it.
Great stuff. Well, we'll go through some of the days. Start off with Tuesday. The probably performance of the week for me anyway was Field of Gold. Colin Keane, first ride for his new employers in the new job. What did you make of that, Johnny?
He was more impressive again than he was at the Curragh, Vinny. When I didn't know what to make of the Curragh form on the day. Some of his market rivals may be disappointed, and I suppose it was nearly the most thought-provoking race of the season, the Guineas Newmarket, in terms of how it worked and the fallout for Kieran Schumacher. I suppose in terms of Kieran Schumacher, history hasn't been very good to him, because Field of Gold has looked so good since. But I do feel the horse has improved with experience. From the Craven, he wasn't trained to win the Guineas that day. He was trained to win the Craven, and he looked very good. I couldn't really see him being beaten in the Guineas. But on the day, I felt he ran into a very good horse in Ruling Court, and I was expecting Ruling Court to give him a race on Tuesday. But Royal Ascot betting certainly didn't suggest that. He was very weak in the betting, having been trained for the Derby, but he wouldn't have been able to beat him anyway. It was a stunning performance, and we've a lot of very exciting young potential stallions on the go at the moment, some trained in Ballydoyle, and this son of Kingman is going to be very exciting, because he's just getting better with experience. He's cantered through his races. He's getting more reliable with every day, and Colin Keane, this was a dream start Royal Ascot for him, because the horse was so good, pretty much anyone would have won on him, but it would have given Colin so much confidence and got him off to a great start. I thought it was an exhilarating performance.
Yeah, the other thing I note here is he was bought for €530,000 as a foal, I think it was. That's some value, Em, isn't it? You'd pay that for a point-to-point winner. It just seems incredible, doesn't it? He's already won back twice that purchase price in 8 starts. And what is he worth at stud? God only knows.
Yeah, look, I suppose it's not a small sum of money, but I definitely kind of see your point there. People are spending that kind of money on, geldings after winning a 4-year-old around a point-to-point track. I suppose he does look massive value then. Yeah, like he was massively impressive performance of the week for me. Like, it was probably race of the week coming into the week. You've got 3 Guineas winners facing off, and he put them all to bed very easily. I was disappointed with Ruling Court a little bit. I don't know, they were talking about stepping him up in trip afterwards, but I don't know, he just seemed beaten a long way out. I think the faster pace definitely suited Field of Gold. Like, you had the Juddmonte pacemaker and the Ballydoyle pacemaker made sure it was a kind of blistering gallop, and he was the only one able to pick up off it. Like, you'd even say 10 furlongs would be within his reach, just the way he galloped so strongly to the line in there. And I'd say options open. He definitely looks like the standout 3-year-old of the year, and yeah, what he's worth at stud. You'd imagine he'll be retiring alongside his father at Juddmonte at some stage.
Yeah, and then we move on to Wednesday. Big day for you and your Paddy Toomey yard, Carmers, his first win at Royal Ascot. That must have been special.
Yeah, it was brilliant. God, it was brilliant. Just kind of the atmosphere, kind of being anyway involved in a Royal Ascot winner, was fantastic. He's a really, really hardy horse. Like, he only won his maiden in Ballinrobe 6 weeks before winning the Queen's Vase in Royal Ascot. So, like, unbeaten in 3 starts, and to go from Ballinrobe to Royal Ascot, I suppose it would be the most conventional route. But there's a brilliant picture from crossing the line. Like, I kind of knew turning in when he was in front, he was the one who was going to keep going. and you could see the picture of him crossing the win line. His ears are pricked and everything else behind him is flat out. So he's a horse with, I'd say, loads of ability. It's just getting it out of him. He always keeps a little bit for himself, which is a good thing as well, I suppose. And it was brilliant for Paddy to get his first Ascot winner as well, because you can probably train as many Group 1 winners here or otherwhere as you want, but it kind of puts you on that international stage, I suppose. We see the international interest in the meeting across the week. It kind of maybe is it another level of publicity, I suppose. So it's, I suppose, brilliant for any trainer to have a winner there, similar to Joe Murphy, who had a big winner in the Coronation later in the week. It was a good week for Irish trainers all across the board, I suppose.
Yeah, it was. We'll move on to Thursday, the Gold Cup. We'd know Kyprios, who was retired recently with an old injury, resurfaced. But Trawler, man, who was second to him last year, went and broke the course record. That was a fair performance, Johnny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I thought Illinois was put in too short, really. And in fairness, on the day, the market sort of found out the favourite. But Trawlerman was very, very good. It wasn't a bad start to that. If Illinois wants to go down that route, it wasn't a bad start for him. He just wasn't able to live with the winner. But the winner finished the race really, really well for a horse who had made the run. And there were maybe some disappointments in behind, but it was. I thought it was a hell of a performance as the winner. On Carmers, like imagine if you were in the betting ring in Ballinrobe the night he was running, and you're like, this Paddy Toomey has a newcomer here at 10-1 to beat Daddy Longlegs, who's like 147 rated hurdler. And you must have just said to yourself, sure, how could you back me? If he's 10-1, there must be something. Like, and it turns out he's an extremely good stayer. I guess he's just improved with experience, but that in hindsight was probably the bet of the year. Anyone who backed that horse first time out in Ballinrobe. And just what Emma was saying there, his attitude, he was hard at it the whole way up the straight. It was a brilliant attitude, and Wootton Bassett's had a very good time of it. But it was a very good Gold Cup, Vinny, to watch. And I think Aidan O'Brien will wonder what might have happened had Kyprios been there, but I don't think he has his successor just yet, having in the shape of Illinois. Very good tactical ride from the front.
I'd agree. Moving on to Friday, the big day for the Irish as well, with the Coronation Stakes you mentioned earlier. Joe Murphy with Cersine, 33-1 pops up, and that looked like a hot race as well. What did you make of that, Emma? Were you there for that? No, you'd gone home by the time that happened.
I wasn't. I had gone home, so I was. I think I was actually on my way up to Zach Bryan in Phoenix Park on Friday evening and watching it in the car. So, but no, it was brilliant. I'm actually living up in Feathered now, so Joe Murphy will be kind of a local-ish trainer for me now, from my adopted home, I suppose. But yeah, no, it was brilliant, and like I suppose it's kind of hard to describe kind of like what a Royal Ascot winner would be like for a trainer of any level, but for Joe Murphy, who's kind of maybe a veteran of the training game, and to get one after a long career, I think everyone was just delighted for him to see it. And maybe like I suppose hindsight is always a great thing, but she probably, like, looking back now, I didn't back her or anything like that, but 33-1 was probably a bit of an inflated price, given she was third in the Guineas last time. She was beaten 4 lengths by Lake Victoria, who was a big loss to the race, I suppose. But she had good form, and I don't think there's maybe a massive fluke about the performance. I suppose the French will be a bit disappointed with Zaragana, who probably just didn't go through with her effort. I saw people popping up on social media on about the French Guineas again. Should they have stuck the result, because maybe she wouldn't have gone in front, given the way she kind of backed off that day. But I think it's kind of a rubbish argument, to be honest. I don't think you can define a steward's inquiry by what a horse may or may not do at the time. But no, it was a brilliant result for Joe Murphy and for Gary Carroll, and maybe people who are studying the form quite closely from the Irish Guineas might have had a few quid on her, because she looks like a classy filly, and hopefully she can kick on and be a flag bearer for the Murphy yard going forward.
I've said a bit, Vinny, about that one of the biggest challenges as a punter, if you bet regularly, which I don't really do anymore, certainly not as nearly as much as I did, was backing horses who are drifting and wondering, and because you don't really want to be backing drifters. And I was saying the same as Emma was saying after the race, like, she did not deserve to be 33-1 SP, whatever her price was on the exchanges, because she looked like she could be capable of better than she showed in the Guineas. And it was an unbelievable result. Like, Australia's had the Derby winner now, and this in the space of a couple of weeks, the sire has gone down to about 10 grand. And it was interesting, Joe Murphy saying afterwards he really loves Australia as a sire, and he said if she were a little bit bigger, he wouldn't have been able to afford her. And I suppose that's fair enough. But Joe Murphy, of all of the people in racing. He is an absolute gentleman. Like, he's, ever since I had to do with him, he just comes across as a guy who you'd really wish well. And the last time I spoke to him was at the races, where he said his son Joe's interest in his love for horses was kind of bringing him back to his own initial love for the game. And as we get older, things change, and you realize what's things that maybe felt like everything back in the day don't feel like the same. And you probably go through days when you're not as much in love with the game as you were before. But he really spoke about how Joe being as interested, young Joe being as interested as he was, almost reinvigorated his own love for the game. And actually, that wasn't the same interview I talked about her going to Royal Ascot, and I suppose he was a bit hopeful, but magic stuff. Could not happen to a nicer fella. And I know Gary Carley's called him his adopted son. I think he's there 17 years now. This is genuinely a victory for the good guys.
Yeah, nice to see Gary Carroll get the winner too. The other one on that same day, Friday, was Ethical Diamond for Willie Mullins. This very interesting horse. He's talking Melbourne Cup, he's talking York as well for the Ebor, but he's also talking about thinks the horse has got a big future over hurdles. It's interesting to see, where does he go. Do you think he'll go Melbourne Cup, Emma?
Wouldn't be shocked at all. I suppose same connections who rolled the dice with Absurd last year. They obviously like a bit of globe trotting, and Willie Mullins, I suppose, it's a bucket list item for him, a Melbourne Cup as well. Look, I suppose he was a hurdler who was, I suppose, massively eye catching as a juvenile. He wasn't far off Grade 1 level, Group Grade 1 level. And it was a brilliant performance, in fairness. I think, did Willie come in the Royal Procession that day, and he's after getting the horse from the King. So Royal Ascot, he's kind of becoming a regular feature there as well. And we saw Henry getting a winner as well. So the jumps lads are definitely waving the flag over there as well. But wouldn't be a shock whatsoever. He looked like he could be kind of develop into a pretty high class stayer on the flat. And from that yard in those colours, it wouldn't be an untaken route at all. So yeah, he'd be one you definitely have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, good stuff. And then the last day of it, Saturday, the one that really caught me that day was the Jubilee Stakes, the Group 1 sprint. We had a French horse and a Japanese horse fighting out the finish, clear of everything else. It's cracking to see, Johnny, isn't it? The international aspect to this.
Yeah, like you sort of touched on Royal Ascot. I mean, we shouldn't necessarily get into whataboutery in terms of Royal Ascot versus Cheltenham, but it does seem to be a trend now. And Emma spoke about the differences maybe last year. And I tend to agree that Royal Ascot, just from a punter's perspective, it has so much more going for it. Like, and I just feel as well that because these races, the margins are so tight, the efforts the jockeys make and little in play, little things can have such a bearing on a result. And you're talking about small margins, but you're talking about like world class racing and very few like seven. I hate races with less than 8 runners. I really do, from a punter perspective, and with good cause. A lot of punters don't like them either. They don't like backing odds on shots. A lot of 7-runner races will have odds on shots, but they won't have 3 places. So Ascot doesn't have that much of that, but you have that international flavour, and it's not like it's amazing prize money or anything like that. Not at all. If you compare it to the likes of the obscene sort of oil money in Saudi and places like that, where you have 20 million pots. It's nothing like that, and they're not really coming over for the money, but the prestige of having a winner, to have runners from France, you say Australia, the States, and Henry de Bromhead having a winner, loads of Irish runners across the week. Willie Mullins seems to have fallen in love with the meeting. Ascot really has that, and it's fantastic to see when you see jockeys come over with some getting absolutely slated by foreign trainers as well. For the worst ride one trainer ever saw was one of the comments I saw. But it's brilliant to see like different styles, different continents, different jurisdictions involved, and it was great to see that on Saturday. I suppose for me I really enjoyed watching Aidan's 2-year-olds this week, considering Albert Einstein obviously is at home, and Matt Chapman asking him who's the best of them. I think it's a fascinating time, like three 2-year-olds, one of them Albert Einstein, and obviously the 2 Royal Ascot winners by 3 different sires as well. Even Star Spangled Banner in Gstaad would be rare for Aidan, who looks a bit of a monster. They were very, very exciting, him and Charles Darwin as well. Really exciting times for Ballydoyle.
It's mad. The two at the Royal Ascot winning 2-year-olds finished first and second in Navan on the way there. You wouldn't see that too often either.
And
which is
Karmer's in
just
Ballinrobe. Like it's incredible the
yeah.
depth of the maidens in Ireland. Like literally anywhere you could go and see really really good horse. Like Navan's a good place to start, but like that day I think Gastad was sent off something like 7-1, and the winner like 1-3, or the runner up 1-3, who obviously then goes on and wins the Royal Ascot. I was thinking as well, Vinny, if you this is a rare enough thing in when you have related contingency bets in racing. But if you put True Self and sorry, what's the name of the horse that Gastad beat on debut?
True Self, yeah.
True Self, sorry. So if you put True Self and Gastad in a double, Tuesday going into Wednesday, because if Gastad won, it was a massive, massive boost for True Self's chance. It was a very shrewd double to do, because like it was a related contingency double. So if you got the best price in Gastad going on into True Self, it would have obviously gotten a massive form boost into Wednesday. That obviously was a bet I didn't do.
True Love, isn't it? Rather than True Self.
Oh, True Love, sorry.
True Love,
True
Rod,
Love.
sorry.
There you go.
No, we weren't
No
too
worries.
far off.
True Self is Willie's
Yeah,
good
close enough.
player.
True Self used to be a Melbourne Cup horse of Willie Mullins's, was he? He used to win down in
That's right.
Australia.
I was doubting
Anyway,
myself there.
just looking at Aidan O'Brien, you talk about his 2-year-olds did really well. He had 5 winners across the week, but no Grade 1 winner or no Group 1 winner. I think first time in over 20 years that's happened to him. Is that a worry, Emma, or is it just a blip? Nothing to be concentrating on?
I wouldn't be too worried about it anyway. I'd say, look, I suppose he had a few kind of high profile deflections in the lead up, like the likes of Lake Victoria missing the meeting, and obviously Kyprios has been a flag bearer there for the last few years as well. So look, I don't know. I don't think there's any hard luck stories there. I'd say it's just bad timing with a few misfortunate injuries and stuff. I thought, like Johnny said, the 2-year-olds were really, really impressive. And even the Star Spangled Banner horse, like I can't imagine Aidan has even trained too many Star Spangled Banner, but he was very, very impressive. Charles Darwin, same thing. He was really, really good, and True Self as well. So look, I don't think they'll be too disappointed. He was pipped in the end for the trainer's title by the Gosdens, but I'd say they won't be crying too much coming home from Ascot. They had a brilliant week, and Ryan Moore, top rider as well, I think, with 7 winners. So yeah, I don't think there'll be any tears in Ballydoyle.
And one other thing to focus on from the week is the crowds. I find this amazing, considering that, look, we know comparing it to Cheltenham isn't exactly like for like, but Cheltenham, the crowd's down 5% this year, and they fell last year as well. Yet you've got Royal Ascot up 5%. The crowd was up every single day through the week, and you ended up with 71,000 people there on Saturday. They're phenomenal crowds, Johnny, and the cost of entry is very similar to Cheltenham. There's no major difference as far as I'm aware, anyway. And I'm sure drinks and food prices are similar, Emma. So, why are they up? What makes it go? Is it the weather, Johnny, or is there something else at play?
Yeah, I like the weather's a bit of a draw, but like as Emma says, you don't really want to be there in 32 degrees either. So like that can kind of work both ways, and obviously it happening in the summer is a factor in that you want to go racing at that time, and you touched on that in your blog. Like I don't think the weather is really a factor for Cheltenham. It's just Cheltenham is just very expensive for a lot of uncompetitive races, really, at the moment. And Royal Ascot isn't like that. I would just like to touch on flat racing in Britain, because I was in York for a bit of work the week before last, and I don't think I really spoke about this last week, but I actually felt embarrassed being in York on the Friday, comparing it to what the Irish flat offering is in Ireland at the moment in terms of crowds, and the lack of almost like the acceptance of how bad the Curragh and Leopardstown have gotten. And like Leopardstown is becoming an absolute joke in the summer now. It's really like, and I think the last flat meeting off the top of my head at Leopardstown started at 4:20 or something like that. Like that's not you can't be starting an evening meeting at 4:20 for post-work people. And at York, I think the crowd at York, it was a Friday afternoon, a run-of-the-mill card. There was 7,000 or 8,000 people there. York has a population of roughly 10% of Dublin, right? And Leopardstown can't get anyone to go racing. Now, it might be that nobody has any interest in the flat, but I think there's more to it than that. There might be an issue with how late you can start meetings, and I know that their hands are tied a bit, but we have to get the Leopardstown experience back. They have to start targeting people to go there and make it a fun night out. And one thing that struck me at York was that you can go in to the infield and bring in your own beer and your own food, and I think they charge you like £8 or something like that. And there was just a lovely atmosphere like they used to have on the infield in the Curragh for the Derby. But I was coming coming back, I was like, it was such an enjoy. Like York's a fantastic race course. Like maybe I'm not comparing like with like, but Leopardstown and the new CEO there should really be trying to get the flat back, because this is a problem as well. Bookmakers completely lose interest in meeting, and if Emma's to bring her friend, who's a young man or woman, to a flat meet in Leopardstown, do you think he's going to go back or she's going to go back if there's no one there, for example? And you're trying to get people into it, so it's kind of it's something that's getting worse and worse and worse. And Leopardstown, as our premier flat experience in the summer, has become a farce. And when I was in York on that Friday, I was like, Jesus, they'd die for this at Leopardstown. They'd be lucky to get a crowd like that now nearly at Leopardstown on Champions Day, let alone a Friday afternoon. And it's a sad comparison for me.
Yeah, when you talk about Leopardstown starting at 4:20 or whatever, but that York meeting was afternoon. Was it probably started at 2 o'clock or 2:30? So I don't know whether the timing makes much difference, really.
It does, Vinny. Though for a post-work crowd, you can't be starting races at 4:30. Like they used to have 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That's absolutely ideal. And I know it's not straightforward now with timings of races, but they have to start attracting the post-work crowd to Leopardstown. It's a brilliant night, whether there's a band or not afterwards. And that just seems like they just accept now that it's done. And you talk to bookmakers, and it's so dead. It's criminal.
Yeah, interesting stuff. All right. Moving on, we've got loads of other stuff to talk about, but one of the things from last week that just sort of pricked my ears a little bit was Down Royal on Friday, the last race, a 7-furlong handicap, and the stewards decided to throw out the winner because he had interfered with the runner-up and the third at the halfway stage in the race, just under 3 furlongs to run. He bumped the third horse, who then bumped the second horse, and the second horse has beaten a length and a quarter, but they switched the result around. Johnny, that's an unusual one, isn't it, for interference so far from home to be taken into account and to cause the result to be changed?
Very much so. I often bring up for the crack Alicadu and Operation Houdini back in the day, in the Cork National about a million years ago now. But Emma's dad trained the winner that day, and I remember our camp thinking afterwards, like, sure, you never get thrown out for interference at the second last. Why would you not? Like, do you know what I mean? But this was very unique for a flat race. This was about. So they're coming down into the dip. It's not far off halfway, like a little bit after halfway. And it's interesting looking at the stewards that day. Mr. Lawrence McFerrin, Mr. Justice Tony Hunt, the Reverend Colin Hall Thompson, who's a Presbyterian preacher and an all-around good guy by all accounts in the north, Mr. David Aiken and Mr. Hugh Hines. So there's a real mix of people debating here, and the Stipes obviously at the helm, debating whether this horse should be thrown out or not. But I never remember an incident like this before. Where the key for me here is the winning margin was like, it was quite big, and ultimately the stewards decided they were happy that the interference caused what should have been the result not being the result, and they thought it was so severe that the first would have finished second and vice versa. I watched it back. I'm not confident that was the case at all, but at the same time, these things are up for debate, and I admire the fact that the stewards basically rewarded the horse who was completely badly wronged against by the first past the post, in terms of that horse leaning so badly, left under pressure. And I would like to see more of this, where the horse who does nothing wrong in the race is given the benefit of the doubt by demoting the horse who caused all of the problems, literally all of the problems. And it was a domino effect as well. The horse in the middle, I think, who finished third, was obviously done for it. But I would like to see more of this. It was a bold call by the stewards, certainly a debatable one, but I think horses need to be punished more for this type of interference.
Yeah, interesting. All right, we'll move on. We've got a big weekend's racing coming up. Derby weekend in Ireland. 3 days of it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The first thing I note here is you've Lambourne. Epsom Derby winner is obviously odds-on favourite to win the Irish equivalent. But you've 5 horses to finish behind him in Epsom Ran and Royal Ascot. And we're going to see a lot of these other ones. I looked at entries for Saturday, some of the early entries. You've the early stud stakes, 35 entries, 10 of them ran in Royal Ascot. The Albasti International Stakes, 34 entries, 14 of them ran in Royal Ascot. And these are a lot of the best horses that were entered. There were winners in Royal Ascot and so on, and horses that finished place. So we're going to probably have a Curragh meeting without them. That's a bit of a drawback, Emma, is it?
Yeah, I suppose it's probably a bit of unfortunate timing. Like maybe the odd few of them might show up again, but you'd imagine the vast majority probably won't make that fast turnaround. Yeah, it's probably it's kind of maybe there should be a bit more of a gap between Ascot and the and the Irish Derby meeting, but like the flat campaign is so jam packed. I was like, talking to someone about it the other day. It's we were talking about the differences between that and Cheltenham. Like Ascot is I suppose, the Cheltenham of flat racing in a way, but it's still kind of a springboard towards the rest of the season in a way as well. You're not building up the entire season towards the big festival. It's it's every few weeks on the flat there seems to be like a marquee festival, whereas over jumps, it seems to be, one every race meeting is building towards this one meeting. It's what the kind of narrative seems to have become anyway, at least. So it's unfortunate for the Curragh, but I'm sure it's still going to be a cracking card. I've only had a glance over the first entries now yet. It'll be great. I think the plan, sounding like from Ballydoyle, it's going to be to send Lambourne to the Derby, is the last quotes I read anyway. So I suppose it's always good to get an Epsom Derby winner back to try and do the double. And we saw Augusta Rodin doing it a few years ago. And hopefully he'll show up there and put in a good performance. But look, it'll be a good weekend's race in either way, and hopefully the Curragh can get a bit of nicer weather. Like we were complaining about the heat in Ascot, but I think one thing that always takes away a little bit from the Curragh, like when someone, maybe if I had no reason to go there only for a day out, I'd be looking at the weather forecast, because it's probably one of the coldest places in the country if you don't have a nice day of it. So it's probably no fault of the race course, but hopefully the weather can change a bit for the Curragh now, because it's raining here now at the moment. It looks like it might rain away for the week. But if they got a bit of that Ascot sunshine, it would definitely help their crowds, I'd say.
Yeah, their stand doesn't help either for the rain coming in. It's a very open stand, isn't it, with that big flat roof on it. What about you, Johnny? You looking forward to the Irish Derby? You'll be there some of the days, I presume, would you?
Yeah, it's not going to be a great derby by the looks of it, but I suppose the Irish Derby has struggled for several years now, and maybe attracting the fields that it used to have. And we speak about getting the overseas riders over. It's just, it has been more difficult. Obviously last year, like when Los Angeles won it, in fairness, you did have a decent kind of English feel in the race, but it's not going to be a great car. But yeah, as Emma says, I hope to get decent weather at the Curragh, because the Curragh's having really challenges attracting an audience. And the one positive about the Curragh, I was talking to a fella near me recently who was he put up a site for sale, and basically this is in Dublin now, but your man is looking for $250,000 for the site or so. And your man was telling me to build a 3-bed house, the construction cost would be about 600 grand, right? And I was thinking, like, 600 grand just to build a 3-bed house on the construction alone. So the one good thing about the Curragh is that, as much as people say it's a white elephant and all that, imagine if the Curragh were trying to do the rebuild now, how much it would cost. It would cost, say, nearly 2.5 times what it cost them. So it would be a complete and utter disaster. But they need to get people racing again. It's a beautiful facility, and I'll see there maybe at the weekend. But I hope they do get a bit of nice weather. It's probably not going to be very strong Irish Derby, as you mentioned, Vinny.
Is that a gold-plated 3-bedroom house? Is it 600 grand to build a 3-bedroom house? Not a chance.
It's construction costs in Dublin, yeah, absolutely insane.
Can't believe it. It must be important, every item or something, or the construction people. It seems crazy money. You can buy a 3-bedroom house in Kildare for about 400. So there you are. Just dig it up and move it up to Dublin, if you've got your site. Anyway, one other thing to note from last week is Kevin Prendergast, one of the doyens of the sport, a man who trained for 60-odd years on the Curragh, trained over 2,000 winners, including Tad, who is the sire of Ethical Diamond. He had him to win the Guineas in the Curragh before, never actually won a derby, but he went close a few times as far as I remember. He was a great guy, Johnny. 92 years of age. You'd have dealt with him a fair bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, like he was an absolute inspiration, and an inspiration of inspirations. When I did one piece, and I remember myself and Patrick McCann meeting him at the Curragh, and he said, "I'll meet you at the Curragh Gallops," and I think it was like 6 in the morning. I said, I was thinking, God, like could he go any earlier? And he met us at the Gallops, and at this stage, Kevin was probably in his mid-80s, give or take. But I do remember something about the conversation we had that day, where he was talking about his father, Darky, when he was effectively on his deathbed, and he said he'd want to give up the cigarettes, basically. And I was just saying, Kevin Prendergast about 50, and his father basically said, you can make a change in your life at this stage, that'll help you. Kevin Prendergast gave up cigarettes in his 50s, and there's no doubt that he wouldn't have gotten to the age that he got if he hadn't made that decision to. A lot of people do things in life that they shouldn't do that are damaging, and cigarettes are certainly one of them. Kevin decided at that stage. And then when I got to know him in his 80s and into his 90s, he was still having a few pints of a night, if not most nights. He'd go fishing, he'd go shooting, he'd go with the horse every morning. And it's two things for me were that he giving up the cigarettes probably gave him the career, that the life that he had afterwards, because at that stage nearly everyone was smoking, I suppose. And the other thing was how healthy it is to be around horses, because he was. I remember looking at him walking around the yard at times in his 80s, and I was struggling to keep up with him. Amazing man whose age was just a number, and he didn't train like that many top class horses. So to have Autad at that stage was incredible, and he was just an all round really likable fella with a kind of a glint in his eye. And it was one of those days that you thought, will it ever come? Because this man has defied everything so far. But I just also like to mention Aidan O'Brien, who passed away last week. He's mentioned the Racing Post today. You have the celebration of Kevin Prendergast's life, but he was only in his early to mid 20s. He was a former tenant of mine in Dublin, and son of Liam O'Brien. He died in awful circumstances in England just as he was about to start a job over there with Adrian Keatley, and he had a heart of gold. I know Dennis Hogan had lovely messages about him, and John McConnell would have worked with him. We all had a really, really good time for him. He was a unique character who was very, very sharp and was going to go a long way in the game. And I was really devastated when I heard the news that he passed on Monday, and my sympathies go out to Liam and all his family and his many friends in racing as well.
Very good. May they both rest in peace. Anyway, we'll go last thing. A horse to follow from last week. I'll start off at one. Wasn't that Royal Ascot? It was in Leopardstown. A dream to share. Former champion bumper winner at both Punchestown and the Cheltenham Festival. Hadn't won for over 2 years, nearly 3 years. Won a flat race at Leopardstown over mile 7. Had won a couple of times before over shorter on the flat, but still a maiden over hurdles as well. It's had 4 runs over hurdles. So I think we're looking at Galway here. Galway written all over the horse. It'll be the GPT, and it might be a hurdle race as well. But for me, one to look forward to is a dream to share in Galway. Emma, what caught your eye?
I suppose outside of the ones in Ascot, who I suppose we've kind of mentioned a fair few of them already. A filly from Paddy Toomey's who won in Down Royal as well. She won the Ulster Oaks on Saturday, Royal Entry. She's fairly remarkable filly. She joined us at the start of the year, and she's ran over every trip from a mile to 2 miles and ran with fair credit each time. She's a filly with a huge engine. I think if anyone hasn't seen her win in Cork there, I think her first win for the yard, she broke from the stalls very slowly and absolutely flew home to win that day, beating a quality enough field, and she kind of stepped up again then to finish 4th over 2 miles in Down Royal next time, and back to Down Royal again. She was very good, winning the Ulster Oaks over 10 furlongs. She's a filly she's got entries at nearly every level, and I'd say wherever she goes next, she seems to be kind of on the upward curve the whole time, and seems to be kind of getting a bit more straightforward in her racing. She broke from the stalls quite well in Down Royal the last year, I thought. So if she can keep stepping forward, she's obviously one with a huge engine and totally versatile trip-wise. So definitely one I'd say to keep an eye on, because she'll give you a bit of entertainment anyway, if nothing else.
Yeah, interesting name, Royal Entry. You presume that was named because it was going to go to Royal Ascot rather than Down Royal. But then I see it's one in the weekend. Phenomenal filly. That's another one that I think is a nice name for a 2-year-old going Friday, I think, in the Curragh. One to watch out for, I'd say, as well. All right, Johnny, what about you?
Phenomenal filly.
Yeah, Royal Entry was in honour of Jim Bulger's love of the royal family, I think, or not. But yeah, I thought that was fascinating race at Down Royal. I tipped her up, but as you say, you don't know. She stays so much for you. don't know what she's going to do with stalls. Great ride from Billy Lee, I thought. Whistle Jacket is my horse to follow. This was not a good ride by Wayne Moore. He found I was talking to a friend of mine who had He'd actually this was the Commonwealth Cup it was later on in the week, Royal Ascot, whatever day the Commonwealth Cup was on the Friday. But my friend had laid a Shadow of Light in the 5-place market. I didn't like Shadow of Light at all at the prices. I thought for a Guineas horse rattling fast 6 furlongs, I didn't think it was going to work out for him. But Whistle Jacket was 12-1, not a bean for the horse. Couldn't figure out how it was so weak. He was ridden really cold by Ryan Moore, who. He just got into trouble that it shouldn't have happened really, but he was kind of maybe it was a bit of I don't know how he was so weak in the betting. What was this, because this horse is nearly always a short price, and I thought 10 to 1 was too big. He was nearly 18s on the exchanges, I think, but it was almost like they rode him a little bit to see where he was at in these big field sprints, and I think they'll go back from this race very happily, because he travelled well and the race developed way ahead of him. He'd no chance getting into it, found traffic, and then really stayed on. Should definitely have beaten Shadow of Light anyway. And interesting going forward, see, Aidan doesn't tend to have the sprinters, even bringing over sprinters from abroad, doesn't necessarily seem to work for him. A Whistle Jacket could still be a very good sprinter going forward.
Okay, interesting stuff. Well, look, thanks for watching, and if you did enjoy it, as we say, do click the like button below and subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, gamble responsibly. And we'll be back next week for more of the same, and we'll be all chatting about what happened at the Curragh Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.